Good morning and welcome. A little bit of technical difficulties, but we're ready to rocking and rolling on episode 41 of the PGP podcast. Hey, Josh Tobat, Prop Principal of Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland ISD, Garland, USA, ready to rock and roll with these awesome educators because you know what? The number one thing any campus requires is a structured environment, a loving structured environment, and we've got top-notch guests who that's their bread and butter right here. Hey, we're missing Mari. I think she's playing with a hippopotamus. I don't know. She's somewhere in Tanzania with some ostrich. I don't know. She's telling me she has these awesome stories. If you followed her on her social media, you're seeing those links. And you know what? It just totally melts your heart. The way that she is able to go to a different continent, connect with those kids, something else. So remember, she'll be telling stories. I'll keep her time short. But if you want to go to Africa with her, keep that in the back of your mind. She's a person to go to. Hey, we have these awesome guests right now. But before we jump into them, hey, thank you for being here. I don't know when you're listening to the show. I don't know if it's in the morning, the afternoon. Just like me, I'm a podcast connoisseur. I listen to them in the morning when I'm at the gym. But after that, it's crucial that we take all that knowledge and make sure that we implement it wherever we are, in the classroom, in the hallways, in the cafeteria, as a campus administrator. So take all this knowledge from the podcast, from EduWeek, Edutopia, all those things, and implement it for your students. You know what? Thank you. Thank you for listening to our show. I try to make sure that I get all the best guests out there to bring you solutions for what ails, how you can better improve that. So if you want to be part of this show, you bring some of those tools, which all of us do. We've had bus drivers, cafeteria workers, instructional aides, veteran teachers that have retired, veteran teachers, novice. We have everybody here because that's iron sharpens iron. And that's where we get all the knowledge. And that's what education is. Education is learning from each other and making it our own. So we're going to start off with, like I always do, with a chinchilagua moment. Chinchilagua. Kevin is like, I know Kevin knows what chinchilagua is. I know he does because he's here in Texas. Jonathan, I don't know about Jonathan. He has those, I don't know. He has that smile like he never played chinchilagua. Peron, I guess he has no idea. He thinks I'm talking about pork rinds, chicharrones. No, chinchilagua is a game played by Mexicans, and we all line up. You get two families, and it's like 30,000 people, and we all line up against trees, against a wall, and we go chinchilagua arriba, and it's a fun game. It's a totally fun game, and everyone jumps on top of each other. I found a clip on Facebook. I'm gonna post it on one of these shows so you guys can see it. It's fun. You kick each other, you jump on top of each other. It's all fun and games until someone gets hurt. When the little one jumps on top and he falls off and cracks his head open, and the chancla comes out and all the beatings happen, someone always gets hurt. And so today's moment right now, just a reflection moment is this, education is such a fun thing. I received for Valentine's Day a great note. I posted it on my side, the kids. It just comes out of nowhere. Whenever your kids recognize you and you look your ugliest and they give you the most warm, loving, and embracing comment, the because of you comment, you know what I'm talking about, right? You know what I'm talking about. Because of you. And so it's one of those things that we always need to do this PD. We always need to make sure that we keep on getting better. Because I tell our team members, tomorrow's a PD day in Garland. I don't know about you guys. You might not be going to school. But when we go to PDs, a lot of educators do this. You roll your eyes. You go, especially if it's district PD. You're like, oh, I got to go to PD. Hey, you know what? Sometimes some of those kids do that same thing when they walk into your classroom. And it's not easy. It's not easy when you're an adult presenting to who? To adults. It's terrifying. It's horrible. And so it's one of those things that I ask you right now. When you do go to PD, take something away from it. Oh, we've heard that before. No, these are not the same kids. These are not the kids that grew up with myself. I don't want to age our guests, but I had the Sony Walkman. I had Napster. And then they took all that away from me, Lars, and then I had to buy CDs. And they took all that away from me because it kept bumping on my car. And then it started into downloads. And now these guys, I don't know what these guys have anymore. I lost it right there. I stick to the 80s rock. That's all. But in the end, What are you doing to enhance your craft? When you go to PDs, are you taking advantage of it? To me, it's such a heartbreaking scene when I go to national conferences and state conferences and I see people just leave to go have a good time, to go shop. Oh, we're going to go shop here. Or they just stand scrolling. Again, I can't assume that they're not doing work. But when we go to these conferences and we don't get that knowledge from other peers and we don't bring it back to our kids, not only are we cheating ourselves, but that's kids' money. And in a time when they're totally cutting back on us and we don't take advantage of those PD opportunities at the state level, at the national level, and we're just going to shop, or we just chill out having lunch because the session is full. Hey man, that's kids' money. And that kid's money could be used for a better thing. And that's why we get attacked sometimes in education, because we don't take advantage of it. Plus, would you take your kid, your personal child, would you go to a doctor that has not re-upped their licensure? Would you take your kid to the dentist that still uses those 1950 scalpels? You can't be using the same things with the kids that use the Sony Walkman. You can't be using the same skills with the kids that download it with Napster. You can't be doing those things. We need to always improve ourselves because iron sharpens iron. And you got platforms like this, the Fantastic Four, Coach Hurt on Saturdays, Shika and Tammy right after that, Principal Cafele, and then myself right here with Mari on Sunday, the Fantastic Four. All of this is free PD. So if you want to get up and get a drink, it's okay, but you're not investing kids' money in Seattle, in Denver, in Austin. So take advantage of all this stuff. Take advantage of books, take advantage of all these opportunities to fine-tune your craft. And if you are going to PD tomorrow, if you are attending a session, remember, the presenter there, they're terrified. They don't want to bore you. They want to do the best job that they can. So make sure that you encourage them. And if they say, hey, talk to your shoulder partner, and you don't do it, it's horrible for us as adults. You know you don't like it when you do that to kids. And when you're teaching a class and you say, all right, guys, talk about this with your group, and no one says anything. Or when the teacher says, ask a question and the room stays crickets. You know how horrible that feels. So on a PD day, on a state level day, on a national PD, whatever it is, be an active participant and learn and bring that knowledge so that your kids can become a better version of themselves. And part of our guests have been here before. So on our flashback shows, go back to episode number 2. Jonathan was right there. He was our second show. And episode 17, Kevin broke out with his book. And hey, Kevin, I've been promoting your book for the last 4 weeks on the show, just so that you know, you handsome devil, you. Hey, but without further ado, hey, Ryan just joined us. Let me bring the whole kitten caboodle right here. You guys have no idea that you're getting top notch. Every single last show is on fire. Hey, Ryan, I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for being here. Panel, thank you for being here. School discipline, the answers. And then I put a question mark and an exclamation mark, because you know what? There is no answer. I always live by with the concept of school discipline with one thing, the model of Mike Tyson. And if you all ever heard Mike Tyson say this, if you haven't, here it goes. And I'm going to butcher it. Everyone had a plan for me until they got punched in the mouth.
Punched in the face.
So you might have the best air deck. You might have the best Nearpod. You might have the best setup of stations in your classroom. But if you got one Joshua who was a terror in elementary, who was a drunken dude in high school, and I wouldn't go to your class, woo, baby, that Nearpod is out the window. So it's very important that right now, today, you take out them notebooks. I guess I'm just showing my age. Take out that phone right there, or however you take notes, and take down those notes. Panel, let's start off with the introductions, because it's all about, to me, it's all about street cred. Have you guys not been in trainings and you look at them and like, dude, did you ever do this? Dude, did you ever really do this that you're talking about it? It's all about street cred. And so we're going to start off with Jonathan down there, a return offender to third time. He is a veterano here at the PGP podcast. Tell the audience about your current role and let them know what different jobs you've held in education and which one has been your most favorite.
Sure. Yeah. Was I really episode 2? Because man, I feel old now.
Yeah, we are.
Okay. So hi, I'm Jonathan Cranford. I'm author of The Art of In-School Suspension. I am executive director of The Art of ISS. We're a company that helps transform traditional in-school suspension programs into an intervention for both behavior and academics that actually works. I have spent my first 5 years teaching on a therapeutic campus for children with a severe emotional disturbance. I taught high school ELA for those first 5 years. Then I did 2 as the PE teacher for all grade levels, K through 12. That was by far the worst job I've ever had in education, and the hardest. And then ever since then, I've been an ISS teacher, and I am still proudly an in-school suspension teacher, despite all the other things that I do.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Mr. Kevin Curtis.
Hey, brother. Thanks for having me on the show again. I appreciate it. So this is my 27th year. So I've experienced at the elementary, the middle school, the high school, principal, assistant principal, classroom teacher, instructional coach, and even a football coach here in the great state of Texas. So I tell people all the time, when you look at my DNA, D stands for discipline. You look at my RNA, R stands for relationship. So between that DNA and RNA, I taught science. I taught integrated physics, biology, chemistry, speech, health, PE, and 1 year of 6th grade math that I don't like to talk about. So when you talk about the worst, Jonathan, I'm like, that was 6th grade math. Like, that was very humbling for me. When they said, can you teach math? I was like, I could solve it. But I quickly realized I'm not the guy to teach math. But beyond that, my current role is the CEO and founder of Differentiated Discipline. I was actually on the first campus in the entire state of Texas to pilot a restorative practices approach, which led me to be the co-author of Restorative Discipline Practices. And then my newest book is The Connection-Driven Classroom, which is proactive and practical tools to improve student behavior. So now my full-time job is to go to schools, train, consult in areas of discipline and behavior, and primarily 2 pathways. One's about proactive connections on that tier 1 model. And then on the flip side, I have a whole methodology, which I created called Differentiated Discipline, which is really about creating almost individualized discipline plans through strategies, needs, and outcomes.
All right. Street Cred, every show continues right here. Ryan Scott, talk to us.
Hey, guys. Yeah, sorry. Internet technology is wonderful until it doesn't work. I don't know what's going on. So yeah, I'm really, really happy to be here. Josh, Kevin, man, I haven't seen you guys in a minute, and I'm really, really stoked to be able to talk to you guys and everybody else today. But my name is Ryan Scott. So currently, last 2 years, I have been the executive director at Big Brothers Big Sisters of Southwestern Indiana. So we cover 5 counties in Indiana, 1 in Kentucky. But prior to this, I preached the gospel of connections for 16 years within public schools. I was everything from a kindergarten teacher and got to spend the last year of my time in school as an alternative education, high school, middle school administrator. So yeah, behavior has always been something I have loved. And now I get to, hopefully preach the gospel of connection.
Perfect. Love it. Exactly. Street cred right there. More street cred. You got it. Teresa, talk to us.
Hey, Josh, thanks for having me. I'm Teresa Henches. I'm currently the principal at Keys Academy and Options High School. It's 2 separate schools. One's the DAP, one's the just an alternative dropout recovery program. Prior to that, I was an assistant principal down in Clint, Texas. And then I've been a teacher here in Texas as well as in Florida. Where I am now, it is by far the best place that I could have ever hoped to be. It is what I've been passionate about as an educator, because I know there's some opportunity for us to improve how we're approaching discipline with students. So thanks again for having me.
Awesome. And to round it out, Mr. Sam.
Yes, sir. I'm Sam Perone. I work for the Garland Police Department. I'm currently the SRO for Mr. Tovar. I've been a Garland officer for 26 years, 6 months, and 13 days. I realize now, to use a term that we would use, I'm completely outgunned looking at this panel, but that's fine. I'll do my best. I did 7.5 years in patrol on deep nights. Then I was moved to a specialized unit where I dealt with neighborhood crimes. I did that for like 11 years, and I moved into the SRO unit in 2016. I did 5.5 years at the alternative school in Garland. So we had K through 12. And then I got a chance to get out of there and get some elementary schools and Mr. Tovar school. And now I'm just at Mr. Tovar school.
Bro, stop calling me Tovar. It's Josh, you know that. All right, here we go. Hey, before we get started, and street cred drop. No, you have no more street cred than Dodd McKeever Cheever. Thank you for being here today. The ultimate PR person for the Fantastic Four. Thank you for being here. Constance Sherrard, Fantastic Four family. Thank you for being here from Mississippi. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. So let's get like I always say, let's peel the onion a little bit. Get some layers. Obviously, there's gonna be a little bit of a variable with some of our guests here. But Kevin, what motivated you to become an educator, to enter the field of education?
Sure. Fourth grade. My fourth grade teacher had allowed me that if I finished my work efficiently and effectively, that I could go work with younger students. And Josh, I just remember coming back, and I don't remember exactly what it was in fourth grade, but I just remember coming back feeling very proudful of helping some students be successfully academically. And I just remember coming back to her desk and asking her and saying, "Is this what it's like to be a teacher?" And then I told her, and she just gave me this big smile, and she said yes. And I tell people, like, the seed was planted in fourth grade. I just didn't know really what I wanted to do, but growing up, coaches, athletics, ended up wanting to be a teacher and a coach. And I'm just really glad. And it's so funny, just a byproduct. I do also stand-up comedy. And I would just tell you, I did stand-up comedy a few months ago for my book. My fourth grade teacher came to the show. And I have to say this because she called me the next day after the comedy show, and I literally broke down because I literally felt like that fourth grade boy when she said, "Kevin, I'm so proud of you." I mean, I was literally shrunk. So I tell this that full circle, here I am at 55, and my fourth grade teacher came back into my life to watch my show and to share that. So for me, I would give her tons of credit of planting that seed.
Isn't that amazing what our teachers do for us? The ones that we care about. That when we see them, we're still that little kid. We still feel little. It doesn't matter. We're 55. We still feel like, oh my God, Miss, insert your name. Exactly. Mm-hmm. A shout out to Fantastic Four member Shika Houston. See her at 10:30 with Tammy Taylor. Thank you for being here. Teresa, what motivated you to get into education?
So, like I said, I bleed DAP, and when I was a kid, I was that kid. So I had, like most of us, I had a teacher who put me on the right path, because I was definitely going down a path where I would have spent a lot of time with people like Sam, and had a limited view out a very small window. So I had a great teacher when I was in 8th grade that really showed the compassion for some of the stuff that was going on in my life and got me on a better course. So I really wanted to be that for kids. Like I said, as long as I've been in education, this is where I wanted to be, because there's a lot of our kids that are getting, kind of left behind with the discipline piece. So that was my big motivator.
Thank you for sharing that. Jonathan, talk to the audience.
Yeah. Hey, I came into teaching a little bit later. I was in my 30s already. The person who inspired me was my wife, who is a master educator. She is probably the best 6th grade math teacher in all of the United States, if not the world. And I'm not just saying that. Anybody on her team will tell you that. So I totally empathize with Curtis, who said Kevin Curtis, who said he does not feel competent teaching 6th grade math, because I get it. When I'm next to her, I'm like, there's no way I can do what you do. Like I have to teach it because it's part of, I teach everything in ISS, but when I look at what I do and what she does, it's like, oh man, I am a child compared to this person. But she inspired me just by being such a great educator.
Very cool. Very cool. And just for the record, like I said, that cat has been here 3 times. I've broken bread with him. He always says the same answer. There you go, bro. That's legit right there. Let me tell you. Se la quiero mucho. Hey, shout out to Melissa Jones Chunu from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Thank you for being here today. Ryan, talk to us.
Yeah, so this is one that I've said many times, and and I really mean it. And Kevin has heard me say this. I know you have heard me say this. So initially, I got into teaching for the summers off, and I am not afraid to say that because at the time I was a brand new dad, very, very unexpectedly, and I had to get my together very, very quickly. And growing up, my mom was a teacher, and I know and I remembered just the amazing stuff my mom was able to have the holidays off, the blah 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 blah. And so, as a brand new dad, I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? How can I be a good dad? What's a profession? And I had been a soccer coach for several years, so I knew that I loved working with kids. And so yeah, initially it was for the summers off, but I can tell you what, after that first week of student teaching and getting to hang out with kids and mentor kids, that is really what got me in the door. So yeah, unabashedly, it was the summers off, but I stayed because the kids were worth it.
And during our time, obviously, I'm a little bit older than Ryan. That's what people used to say, and then they used to mock educators.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
at least you got summers off. Like, nah, fool. We still got other stuff to do. But you know what?
Yeah.
And that guy loves football. That's how you got connected with kids, also. Not
You got it.
football. Football.
Football.
He still has his podcast out there, so we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Sam,
Okay.
your question needs to be changed a little bit more. I know that you had tons of fun being on patrol. I know it was very vanilla for you. All right. So, what made you change from the vanilla environment out in the streets of Garland to educational, to a campus? How does that work?
Well, one, I had put in my years, and when a position opened up, me and my wife, a little background, me and my wife, she was an attorney in Dallas, and she gave up a lucrative law firm to become the attorney for Child Protective Services. We wound up adopting, we adopted 3 kids through Child Protective Services and a private adoption. And in doing that and all the training we did, I kind of felt like I was more called to work with the kids than I was out on the street with, as a neighborhood police officer, you dealt with a lot of crime watch coordinators and city council people and that kind of stuff. And when a spot came open, I interviewed, and evidently I was well perceived because I had about 5 schools that were trying to take me into their campus. So it worked out pretty well.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that. So now let's go into details, because you know what? All of you, except for Sam, have been in the classroom one way or the other, right? But we need to know how you were. And Teresa already fell on the sword. Thank you for being honest. So we're going to start off with you. How were you, young lady, as an academic in high school or college? And how was your first year in the classroom?
So in high school, I had started to straighten out a little bit. I wasn't the typical college student. I was a college athlete, or student athlete. So I went to college. That was my huge motivator. I was not I hated school. Good Lord. So I understand my kids now, because I was that, like I said, every aspect of that I was. Found something that I really was passionate about. Really, I was a big math person, so I kind of latched onto that, enjoyed doing that, and that between that and playing softball, got myself through college. And then my first year in the classroom was a lot different than I thought it was going to be. I had a huge gap between when I was in college and when I went in the classroom, because I did a career in the military first. So that first year was what I remembered from many, many years ago, thinking it was going to be like that, and it was not at all. I didn't major in education. So, I had this kind of a lofty idea of the good classrooms I was in, and that's what it was going to be. And, ran in, like most new teachers, ran into a lot of walls of unexpected behavior and low student achievement, and the struggle of how do you bring them forward from both those things.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. Mari, stop playing with the ostriches and the giraffes. Focus. I don't want a hyena to be eating your fingers, so get off the internet. Check out the show on the rebroadcast. Ryan, that guy right there, he's got a background. Talk to the audience. Let him know.
Yeah. So how was I in school? Yeah, so I was the kid that learned through osmosis. I never really had to listen, and I didn't. Really didn't have to give much effort, and I didn't. Kind of the kid that just slid through. I enjoyed outside of school a lot more than I enjoyed inside of school. And I floated through school, and then that first year of college hit me square within the nose because I had no idea what it was like to study, no idea what it was like to do the right things. And I'll say this: I started college in 1999, and I finally finished in 2009. So I had quite a bit of life between 99 and 2009. And so I have always had a heart for kids that struggled through school. And that was the hardest part about leaving education because, there are so many kids that were like me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Kevin.
Yes, sir. Oh man. Well, here I am. I was pretty much a really good student. I followed the rules. I wanted to be a teacher's pet. I was in 7th grade. I was quarterback of the football team, president of Nassau Junior Honor Society, president of student council. I had one referral, Jonathan, and I ended up in ISS for 3 days for kissing my girlfriend. And I tell people all the time, PDA, zero tolerance policy, right? But here's the deal. It's the only referral I ever got my entire educational career because when I say traditional discipline works well for traditional kids, that was me. I got the referral, Josh, and it said kicking in the hallway. And I still remember what Mr. Godfrey was wearing. I remember everything. He was like, hey, join me in the office. And I'm like, I'm an office aide. I know exactly where the office was. So it was just one of those situations. But I just remember I was not going to make that mistake again. And so I ended up going into high school, graduated with the highest GPA of male athletes, ultimately getting my opportunity to go to college, the first one in my family. Now, just quickly though, I grew up in a family of 5, the youngest by 8.5 years, and all my siblings primarily did drugs and alcohol. And so I was introduced to marijuana at 9, cocaine at 12. So what's interesting is I had 2 completely different lifestyles. One was partying with my brothers and siblings and then being a good student. And by middle school, I had watched what my brothers had put my parents through, and I decided I want to be something different. So I chose the pathway of being in education and throw myself on that sword and realistically started. But then I laugh at myself later because I ended up leading the district with the most exclusionary consequences and kicking kids out. I'm a former cyborg of suspension. So I look at myself and how I've grown over the years, Josh, and it's not where I started, but I'm glad where I'm hopefully going to finish.
Love it. Thank you for sharing, man. Awesome stories. Jonathan. You're on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. Oh, I was just gonna say, Kevin, respect the reason for you getting ISS. Could be way worse than that. How was I as a student? So I hated school early on. And I mean, probably 1st or 2nd grade, I started to actually hate school. And the reason is because I had ADHD in an era before it was cool to have ADHD. So I'm not going to say when exactly, but I had a Walkman that played cassettes. So it was in that era. I was told a lot that I was smart but lazy. And then unfortunately, unlike Teresa, I didn't get better in high school. I just got worse. I just became more and more disconnected from my learning environment until by the time I was 18, I had dropped out and had a kid on the way. So fortunately, there was a program in our city called Healthy Families, and there was a social worker. After my daughter was born, there was a social worker that was involved in our lives that helped us to kind of get everything together. She helped me to, find a school, go back to school and graduate and then go to college. And she took a lot of time to work with us. I always say, shout out to Fabiola. But one of the things I will say that she did, and this is very important when it comes to follow through, is we were her model family. We both had dropped out of school, and then we went and both graduated from school. And then she wanted us to go to college. And she did something that I will never forget. And I put this in my book. She she was like, okay, y'all are going to go to college. And we were like, oh, we are? Okay, cool. So she's like, yeah, we're going to bring over these FAFSA forms, which you guys know, student financial aid. And we're going to all fill them out together. And we're going to bring the college applications over. We're all going to fill them out together. And I still use this every day in school suspension, which is that I know that if she had just dropped off these forms and dropped off, the FAFSA and the application to junior college, they would have sat there and they would not have gotten completed because of my ADHD, because of my follow through, whatever reasons would have come up. It would have been another year before we even maybe looked at those forms. It just wouldn't have happened. But she sat there with us and we all filled out these forms together, all three of us, even herself. And that made a huge difference in my life because it was the fact that somebody took that extra step to get me where I needed to be. And sometimes that's what these kids need is, you can't just be the person who's like, hey, do you need help with that? And they go, no. And then you just kind of walk away. Like that doesn't work. So shout out again to Fabiola.
All right. Jefe, safe travels wherever you're going, from whatever state to whatever state you're going. And Doc Fonz from the RGVs in the house. Thank you for being here, Fonz. Appreciate you. Yes, we all know Fonz, right, Ryan? We all had him before. So great job right there, Fonz. Thank you for being here. And future guest, I think next week. Sam, I want to know how PD was in high school. Talk to us. Don't fake the funk, brother. Don't lie.
Well, I was actually kind of like Kevin. I was actually a good student. I followed the rules. I did what I was supposed to. Pretty boring for the most part. I had a shop teacher in Stephenville, Texas, that when I moved from New York to Stephenville, he told me, he told the whole class, he goes, I'm going to bust everybody with that board on the wall before this year's over. And I was the only kid that he did not bust, and I didn't bother reminding him of it either. So like him, I usually followed I wasn't great at school. I made A's and B's. I got a 5.5-year, 4-year degree in college because I realized, you could get financial aid, take 12 credits, and 3 of them can be PEs. So, that's kind of how that worked. But for the most part, I never caused any trouble.
Oh, look at you. I wanted some dirt right there, Sam Perone. All right, we're good. All right, so like I told you before the show, we're going to build this up, all right? So don't get too complicated on this first question because it's easy to get into that. So very simple, and we're going to start off with you, Kevin, all right? Don't get it. We're going to build on this, all right? What is discipline, and what does it look like effectively in a classroom and in a campus? What is discipline? Coming from you, from what you've lived. Sure. Obviously, all of you have different backgrounds, right? All of you come from a different angle of this. So what is discipline, your definition, and what does it look like in a classroom and on a campus?
Sure. I would say for what I've reshaped my word about, or my definition around discipline, I would just simply say it is the ability to teach and train and to almost learn from our experiences, right? So when I look at discipline, teach and train, to almost disciple in itself. And what it means for me when it looks like on a campus or a classroom is everybody has different needs. The hard part for me is that breaking outside the box, right? Because we typically use the box or a matrix or something, and we kind of universally grew up into that, which led me to lead the district with 1,149 touches suspension, living in the box. So what I used to think discipline was, and what I thought discipline would do, was change kids. But being the #1 exclusionary campus in Northeast Independent School District, we realized our discipline was raising while we were still excluding kids at a high rate. So when I look at discipline in itself, how does it be effective? It really comes down to trying to figure out, what do our students need? What do our staff needs? What is our community values? It comes down to shaping and reshaping those based on each and every classroom and campus, based on their culture, their climate, everything that's around there. And I think individualizing those things allows us to meet the needs of the students while still meeting the needs of the classroom, the community, and the leaders. And so to me, it allows it to almost in itself shape itself with firm. And when I talk about discipline and behavior, or behavior and connections and accountability, I believe relationships delivered within consequences and within discipline is the key formula. I think sometimes what we leave out is we're so focused on the discipline, but we don't do it in a relational way. And I think at this point, nobody likes to be told what to do. And I think when we work with students, and me for transforming, I was a cyborg of suspension. And 3 years later, after working in a more relational discipline model, I found myself caring and wanting to know more about the kids, because then I realized discipline was helped to shape them and grow from their experiences. And I knew that they were going to make mistakes. And I think for me, just absorbing that and understanding that and giving them leading with grace helped me redefine what I believe discipline currently is.
Awesome. Beautiful. So Ryan, you've had public education under your belt, but now you have this group of kiddos, these babies. So you're looking at it totally, and I'm sure you're hearing stories at a different angle about kids from schools, in schools. So Ryan, what's your definition of discipline, and what does it look like as an effective classroom, effective campus?
Yeah, so anybody that has, I know several of you guys, we got connected through the COVID, and we were all very connected in the Edusphere at that time. And anybody that had ever followed me or my podcast or anything that I was doing at that time, I was consistent, and I still say connections before content. Discipline to me, if I really think about it, accountability, to me, accountability is the truest form of love. But you can't hold somebody accountable unless you show them that love first. And so I love what Kevin says when it comes to discipline. The root word or the base word is disciple. Well, a disciple learns, they walk alongside you. So at the end of the day, I think the research shows, neuroscience is showing it. The research of Dr. Bruce Perry, the school lost at school. Kids do the best they can with the skills that they have. And so to me, discipline is helping those kids to learn those skills that they weren't taught. And anybody that's ever been in education, and I was a kindergarten teacher for years, and you can tell the kids within the first week, the kids that are going to be the struggles, your 1%ers. You can tell who those were, and every single time it were the kids that did not have positive relationships outside of the school. And so at the core of it, I believe kids want to do the best that they can. But if they don't have those positive relationships in their life to show them the best practices, to show them what it's like when you get dysregulated, when your amygdala is hijacked, when you aren't shown what to do, you're going to act fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And until our systems really start to look at that from a neuroscience perspective, we're going to continue, like Kevin said, with this exclusionary consequences. My last year in education, I was at an alternative school, very exclusionary. 1 year, I expelled 63 middle school kids. These are middle school kids that are going to the streets for at least another semester before they get to come back. And almost every one of those kids came from demographics where they just didn't have those positive connections.
So true. I agree with you. And you know what? People leave out brain research. You know what? That's at our home, we've already done two. We've done 2 book studies on brain research. Last year and this year, we've done 2 book studies. It's crucial. We need to know why they're attacking, why during that moment, they're just totally anxiety kicks up. Another perspective. Teresa, you run a whole school.
I do. So I kind of use a 3-pillar approach to discipline. We look at it like we talked earlier, look at it from the perspective of its opportunity, its engagement, and its responsibility. The opportunity piece is an opportunity for students to accept the responsibility of their actions, accept the responsibility of their learning in whatever classroom setting that they're in. It's an opportunity for teachers to increase their engagement, to reduce behavior issues. And then ultimately, it's an opportunity for us as educators to make those meaningful connections, to avoid the potential for discipline, punitive discipline response, because we were ineffective in engagement. We were ineffective in promoting, individual academic and behavioral responsibility.
Jonathan, when they get tired of them in the classroom, that administrator, go 3 days. ISS.
Yeah, I am exclusionary discipline. Hello, hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Yeah, so I will, and what I do is something called trauma-informed in-school suspension. It's totally different than traditional ISS, but more broadly, what I will define discipline for you as, and I'll make it quick, it's nurturing. So I wish I'd known this as a parent. My daughter is now 27. She's a school teacher. We're all a family of school teachers now. She's doing great. I just wish I'd learned it a little bit sooner. I think it would have made me a better parent. And I didn't know what nurturing is because as a guy, as a male role model, it's not like the first thing you're thinking of when it comes to, how can I be more of a nurturer? It's just not, at least in the era that I was raised in, it wasn't something that we were paying attention to like we should have been. And so what nurturing is simple. It is, I am going to set these boundaries for you, and I am not going to allow you to go outside of these boundaries. But on the other side of that, there is going to be so much support here that you aren't going to care about what those boundaries are as much. You're not going to mind them, or you may mind them a little bit at first, but then you're going to be okay with them because of the support on the other side. And usually we're missing one or the other thing. We're either missing the boundaries in a classroom or in a school, or we're missing the support side of things. And so for me, discipline really comes down to a form of nurturing.
So Sam, you bring it from a total different angle. You ran into youths out in the street making wrong decisions. Then you worked at an alternative campus. Now you're at a regular campus. So you bring a different set of eyes to what discipline is and what it should look like in a classroom in a campus. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you might think coming from law enforcement that I believe discipline is punitive first, and I don't. I never have. I mean, to a little bit on the insight, when I took my psychological exam, the psychiatrist to get in the police department, he actually recommended me not be accepted because I was too kind and too caring towards people, and that may not benefit me all the time, right? But I would rather give Ryan the rules and the chance, and then if he fails, then we can do something different. We have a lot of guys that like to do something different on the jump, and I've never been that way. When it come to the alternative school, I was able to, after a few months being there, seeing that they saw me as someone that was just scary sitting in an office. So every time a kid came in, I brought him in and we just talked about why they were there, what they were doing, what I might have done different. And what that did is when I got called into a classroom, because, you can't get kids in the class. Then when they're in trouble and you ask them to leave, you can't get them out of class. So, I would explain the rule to them. This is what's going to happen. This is going to be your choice. You can either get criminal trespass and be arrested, or you can come with me. And then finally it got to where they would be like, I'll go to Officer P's office, but I'm not going to the principal's office, if they would call him other explicitives, right? And Dr. Hemphill was great because he understood my role. And I would get them in my office and I would let them rant and rave. And then I would do something where I would be like, okay, here's what's going to happen. If it was me, this is what I would do. And you can't tell these kids to apologize because they've never been taught to apologize. They don't know how to express themselves that way. So instead of trying to get them to say the word sorry, I would come up with, I want you to use I statements. Let's talk about what you, no, I'm not talking about the teacher. Let's talk about what could you have done different? Oh, I shouldn't have called her a B, or I shouldn't have thrown a chair, or I shouldn't have, okay. We'd go to Hemphill's office and they would use their I statements, and behind them, I would be doing this to Dr. Hemphill saying, look, I massaged their brain a little bit. And I would explain to them, even though you might apologize, take ownership, which is the important part. Step one, take ownership. There's still going to be discipline, but it might be less than if you go in there with this attitude, because when you're screaming and yelling, people are not listening to you. And that's the worst part about being a youth. When you're screaming and yelling, the adults are no longer going to hear what your original problem was. And is what I want you to be able to learn is expressing yourself where you can tell the adult what your problem is. And that's how I worked it.
Perfect. Beautiful. Different backgrounds, different jobs, same approach. Love it. Awesome. So now let's peel the onion back a little bit more, right? Starting off with you, Ryan. So we all described what discipline was right now. Yes? We all describe what it should look like from where we come from in a classroom and in a campus. So now, based on your experience, all of your experiences, what role do the following three groups have? What role? Administrators, teachers, and parents. Based on the answers that you all provided, What role do they each serve? Ryan, go.
Ooh, man, you gave me the hard one first. Administrators, teachers, and parents. Okay. Well, just like in my opinion, just like kids do the best they can with the skills that they have. We also have to remember that our parents are doing the best they can with the skills that they have. And when I was an administrator, it was my job to get the parents on board, to get the parents on my side. And so I would make, 3 times as many positive calls as an administrator home to some of these students. Some of our high flyers, it's easy to run a discipline report when the beginning of the year starts and see which were your high flyers. Be intentional about building relationships with those parents. And look, like I said, I mean, I expelled way too many kids. But I can tell you, I never had a parent cuss me out because I took the time to talk to those parents and to let them know that I was holding them kids accountable because I loved them. So as an administrator, my job is to make sure that the parents feel supported, but also to make the teachers feel supported. And so the teacher's role, obviously, if you roll, you lay down that firm connections before content. You're going to do your best to build those relationships with those kids, but you also have to hold them accountable. So there is going to be a line in the sand where you have to call an administrator to come. I love, and I've been out of it for so long, I can't remember the name of it, but I used to have a system where, a teacher, and if they just needed a break, they would text me or another administrator and check and connect. That's what an administrator come into the classroom, pull this kid out, just as a, what's going on. Let's go walk around and figure out the PASS program. If anybody has ever heard about the PASS program, I loved that program because it was a way to non-verbal let a school administrator know that a kid needed it. So as a school administrator, your teachers feel supported, making sure your parents feel supported. It's your role, classroom, where everybody feels valued, seen, and heard, and build that sense of belonging to where every single kid in that classroom feels like that is a safe space, but also to hold those kids accountable. And that there are times where the kid needs a break or you need a break from the kid.
Agreed. Teresa?
I hope I explained it all right.
You did a great job. So I think that administratively, our role, with parents, at least the approach that we take is as a facilitator. All of us have been in the educational environment long enough to clearly see that a lot of our parents lack some of the skills to understand the behaviors that their student or their child is demonstrating, some of the academic struggles, and how those academic troubles may be manifesting into behaviors. So one of the things that we really put a lot of effort in is facilitating learning for parents, but not in a vacuum. It's with their child. So we have opportunities for the parents to learn in a parent setting where they can feel free to discuss things without, I guess, giving away all the secrets so that they don't go home and their child knows what they're going to do now. But there's also other opportunities where their student comes in with them and they go through, there's a myriad of different educational opportunities. So I think the biggest thing with parents is to facilitate, and also to facilitate the link between parents and the school, because a lot of times parents' frustrations with the school and the discipline that is often handed down in a punitive manner it's a lack of understanding and a lack of clear communication. Not a lack of understanding policy, but lack of understanding their perspective and the student's perspective. I think our role with teachers is to be their support. All of us have been in the classroom at some point, and once you're out of it, it's hard to, sometimes we forget what it was like in there, and what it's like now is not what it was like when all of us were in the classroom. And keeping that in the forefront of our thought process when we're making decisions is important. And then I think administratively, when discipline comes to me, my role in it one aspect is it shifts from an administrator to a teacher, because if I'm working with students, I can sit there and be stern with the student, but it's a great teaching opportunity for students to learn not so much why the behavior was wrong, because more times than not they know that, but teaching the social end of acceptable behaviors and implementing practices that focus on the damages those behaviors do to others, as well as the long-term effect that they'll have with the student.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Kevin.
Oh man, I'm just taking it all in, Josh. I would say, so if I start like at the hierarchy and just start with the administrators, I think some of the things I think about, one is creating a school-wide discipline plan. I think it's, as an administrator, it's our job to frame that. In addition, just like you mentioned, training and support. So giving the brain researches, ACEs, adversity childhood experiences, things that give a little bit more depth and training and support for your staff. I also think that as an administrator, helping your staff and your students deal with intervention and conflict resolution, things that deal with conflicts and behavior issues. I think ultimately as a leader, I need to set my staff up and my students to feel safe. I think ultimately, as Brian said, right, or words are, valued, seen, and heard. I think as a building principal, it is my responsibility to make my stakeholders, my students, my faculty, my staff, everyone, that create a safe environment where students have a voice and a choice, and they feel like they can trust. And as you pointed out earlier, Jonathan, those boundaries. It's our job as adults in the campuses to make sure that we have boundaries, but ensuring equity and fairness, and making sure that our parents are involved in the school. I think when you narrow down into the teachers' classrooms, I think sometimes it's so funny, because as much as I preach and teach about the connections of relationships or the concrete of connections, sometimes I also look back at classroom management, like Harry Wong's Basic Classroom Management 101. In fact, in the book on page 71, I talk about a caveat: chaos times connection still equals chaos. And if we don't set up a structured classroom where things flow, where students feel safe, and as you mentioned, John, those boundaries, and we allow them to experience them, and when they go outside those boundaries in the classroom, to kind of guide them and use our connections as importance to use positive reinforcements, be fair and consistent, de-escalate situations, and collaborate with the students and the parents. And then I think lastly, when you look at the parental roles, right, setting expectations at home, supporting school policies for the policies, because I see a lot of parents not supporting the schools. I think effective communication lines between the student, the staff. How many times do we get a breakdown between the parent, the staff, and the student? Modeling behavior and holding kids accountable. I think accountability is one of my, it is literally about, I'm hardwired for that as a core value, but ultimately I think the school system in itself, this is what I love to teach, is there's a gap in accountability, whether it's happening at home, in a classroom. And I think ultimately while you're putting these voices together, accountability is something that indirectly or directly we're all pointing towards, right? Because for me, fundamentally, when I look at these like consequences, for example, black and white are consequences without grace, and gray are consequences with grace. Everybody wants black and white until you need gray. And I say this because ultimately what happens is we're all like, we want everything for our kid, and we want all the things that happen, but when it happens to our kid or it happens to our staff member, then all of a sudden everything is out. Where I just feel like what we're missing from the parents and the staff and the administration is, if I was having a middle school, Josh, I'd be welcome to Mistake Middle School, where we all make mistakes, right? Where my parents are going to make mistakes, I'm the principal is going to make mistakes, my staff's going to make mistakes, everybody's going to make mistakes. So if we could, in my opinion, lead with grace. In other words, if somebody misspelled on their website or somebody didn't respond to you in 24 hours, like, hey, give us a little bit of grace, but communicate with us versus attack us, right? Because I think ultimately what I'm noticing supporting schools is between the parents, the admin, the teachers, we're all just attacking each other and nobody's kind of winning. We're all pointing each other at the finger. And that's why I just wish if we had Mistake Middle School, and because what happens is the reason kids make mistakes, whether it's behaviorally or academically, is what keeps us in business. If we're really in the mistake business, right? Growth and mistakes. And so for me, that would be my approach when it looks at all three of those collectively working together.
Perfect. Sam, how are you looking at those three groups?
Well, from my experience, a little bit different view in that, a lot of times when I'm dealing with parents, sometimes I get called in because parents are irate and it's a safety issue. So I'm already behind the eight ball on building a relationship with that parent. I have had several great relationships with parents, especially at the alternative school, because their kid was in there and you could tell a parent that's really trying and working. And I think it's a matter of consistency that the child knows that the administration, the parent, and the SRO are all on the same page, that we're all doing the same thing. And that brings me to the consistency part of it. When I was at the alternative school, Dr. Hemphill, super consistent. Josh, super consistent. And when you don't have that consistency, it's a mess. I'm sorry, I won't say the middle school, but we were called to a middle school because this middle school had so many fights that they brought in four to five extra SROs during the day just to be in the hallways at a middle school. And then the principal made this big stand and all this stuff that when the bell rings, if you're in the hallway, you were going to the office for a tardy bell, tardy slip, you got to be in the classroom. He's coming down the hallway and he's hollering, get in the classroom, get in the classroom, get in the classroom. Door closes. Kid walks up. Why are you not in the classroom? Well, I had to stop by the bathroom. Okay, this one time, and he opens the door for him. And I thought, I just, no offense, but I lost all respect for what he had to say because it didn't mean anything anymore. And if you're not going to be consistent, don't bother. Well, when you have staff members that if there is a rule that Josh has and classroom number 2 does it and classroom number 4 does it and classroom number 6 does not do it, then that's a bad message, I think, looking on the outside to the student, because I just got away with, Miss A, but Mr. B says no, and Mr. C, and then you're just chasing your tail the whole time. And as an administrator, I don't know how you get everybody on board. I'm sure that's probably only in a fairy world, fairyland, but I like the consistency that Josh has in the school. And I think without that, you can forget about all the discipline talk.
Thank you, bro. I'll Venmo you $50 right now. Jonathan.
All right. Yeah, I love what Kevin was saying about, for administrators, creating a campus-wide discipline plan. Super important. It's the first thing you want to start with, right? To make sure that we have a structured campus. And I would go further and just say, transparency and communication, that's a big thing. So they need to be able to communicate what that expectation is down through the staff to all the students. So when it comes to trauma-informed, any kind of, whether it's trauma-informed teaching or trauma-informed in-school suspension, it's always about safety, transparency, collaboration, and empowerment. And safety and transparency work together. If you have that communication and the students know what to expect of you and they know what to expect from you when they're not meeting the expectation, the administrator sets that. And that also means they set that the teachers know what is expected of them and what to expect when they're not fulfilling their duties. So I feel like that's where it starts with an admin. For the teachers, it's a miniature version of that for every classroom, right? It is, structure and accountability, establish that, gain instructional control of your students, build relationships through that academic process. I feel like the best way to build those relationships, appropriate teacher-student relationships, is with, them learning from you. And that includes a lot of fast feedback, instant feedback on stuff that they're doing. It includes some, small group interaction, some one-to-one interaction, just a combination of those things. And that'll get you pretty far. As far as parents go, I'm just, as a teen dad myself, I was a teen father, people are just doing their best out there. I view the school as we're a big part of the village that is raising this child. So I'm just like, hey, parents, do your best. We can't really we don't have control over that as educators. We can help as much as we can. But for, what I expect of them discipline wise, it doesn't matter what I expect because it's not what I'm going to get necessarily. So that's my 3: admin, teacher, and parents.
Got it. Okay. So
hey, Josh,
you go ahead.
One second. You mind 1 second?
Yeah.
Something Ryan said earlier that I meant to comment on. I appreciate it. Something you said we take from a tool, put in our own box. With my history of being on the street and my wife's history as CPS, you see the worst in most people. And he made a comment that these parents are doing the best they can with the tools they have. And sometimes I don't give that enough credit, that I need to myself remember that, hey, that maybe this parent is acting like this because that's the only tools they got to. And that's the only tools they have. And, maybe we need to take an extra step on educating them a little more and not just focusing on the child and blaming the parent. So I need to do a little better job about that myself.
Awesome. Thank you for opening up that. We appreciate that. So We started off big picture. What is discipline? What does it look like in the classroom? Then we addressed the three major groups of a campus, correct? Parents, teachers, and administrators. But right now, all of us on the call here know, Sam might not that much, but he hears conversations that we have exodus of educators. And we have tons of alt certs here, alternative certifications. So they were in the business world, criminal justice, whatever it was, and now they're coming into education. And they're probably on this call right now. And they don't know about this awesome book or Jonathan's awesome book. They don't know about it. So be specific. What tools? How can we get the kids there? We described a very good classroom. You guys described a very good campus. Give a tool to someone out there in Iowa, in Nebraska, in West Virginia that just started teaching last week. And you know what they're going through right now if you got hired at this point of the year. Give them a tool of how to get there. Because all of you said connections, but the dude that was just working in IBM or Google 2 weeks ago, what do you mean connections? Does that make sense? They don't know. They were not given the tools that us in the cavemen, back when you had to do student teaching, observation hours, you had to do all those kind of things. That's not happening anymore with this exodus. So give some tools, a tool, just to in keeping time in the back of our mind right here. So give a tool, Jonathan, that educator can use. And maybe someone that's been in the classroom for 25 years hasn't had discipline control. They've always had discipline issues. We've seen that, right, Kevin? We've seen that, right, Ryan? Someone that's been in the classroom for 15, 20 years, they still don't know how to control kids. So give someone out there a tool of how we can allow kids to get there, to that point of Xanadu, that point of focus.
Sure. So I'm not going to go into the whole like how to gain instructional control of your classroom because as Kevin Curtis mentioned, chapter 3 of Dr. Harry Wong's book, The First Days of School, does a very good job of outlining that. And you don't have to read the whole thing, just read that chapter. But once you have, I would say start with a seating chart. I mean, for the love of God, if I go into a classroom that doesn't have a seating chart and they're complaining about classroom management issues, I'm like, let's find a starting point and start with a seating chart. Let's just start with that. But once you go beyond that, and we're talking about building a connection with the students, what we really need to do, and we have failed at doing this for these teachers coming through any program. I'm an alt cert. I started out in my degrees in corporate communications, and my past experiences, I was working in hospital information management systems before I got into teaching. So I'm an alt cert, 100%. And so is my wife, actually. And like I said, she's one of the best math teachers in the country. We haven't told people, we tell people to build connections. We do it all the time. It's nonstop what we talk about, right? Build connections, build connections, build connections. How are we telling these 23-year-olds coming out of college to build connections when they're barely even understanding relationships in their own lives, right? So we need to define for them what is an appropriate teacher-student connection. What does that look like? And what I can tell you is I've heard all kinds of things on it that don't make sense. And it's not that hard. So it's not going to be you creating a bond with that student because, oh, you collect Pokemon cards. Wow, I collect Pokemon cards. Okay, I don't. But that's just silly, right? That's not, you're creating some familiarity, but you're not really creating a bond there. And the way you do that is, again, through your academics, through teaching. If someone is learning from you, like genuinely learning in your classroom, they are going to have a connection with you. And the way you build that, though, also is through interaction. So one of the best ways is, I always say within school suspension, we have this thing that we do called win the morning, win the day. It's a part of my system. In the classroom, I call it win the warm up. So when I'm teaching people in classroom management, like campus wide or whatever, I'm like, just win the warm up. Okay. And so if they can win that first 5 to 8 minutes of class, get everybody doing what they're supposed to do, have that as a system, then to build those connections, what you're looking to do is give instant feedback as you're walking around, whatever you have them working on. For that first, 5 to 7 minutes or 8 minutes, whatever it is on that warm up, you're walking around those aisles and you are giving instant feedback on what they're doing because so I have all day to build a connection with my students. That's easy for me in ISS. I have an eternity with my learners, but regular classroom teachers don't. So you have to take those small, quick snippets that you have, since you have 30 students over 45 minutes, and it has to be fast. So you providing as much instant feedback as possible. And as I mentioned before, is you can build in small group, a little bit of one-to-one. I know barely anyone has time for it. You've got 45 minutes, and if you're lucky, 24 students, but probably closer to 30. But you've got to find those ways to actually interact and touch, not physically, but touch each student as you're going through your lesson process, and that will build connection.
Thank you. And just let everybody know, because we got people from around the country. In Texas, ISS is?
In-school suspension.
Okay. We know Texas, but you know what? Mississippi has a name for it. West Virginia has a name for it. I've learned that with these podcasts. Our alphabet soup in education is so awesome. Hey, Ross Gaskin, author, assistant principal, part of the Fantastic Four Familia. Thank you for being here right now. Kevin, tool.
Yeah. So again, I mean, I'm all about connection. So, I mean, for me, the biggest aha, what I can just tell you is, and I say this with all the intentionality, and even when I was a building principal, I was very guilty of saying, build connections, create connections, build relate. But what it was like a hashtag or a motto or something we throw on a t-shirt. The one thing that I learned, and it wasn't until I got in consulting, is nobody teaches teachers how to connect with kids. So the one thing that we have to understand is this: we tell them the importance, we tell them the value, we understand it, but then we don't teach them how to do it, right? So for me, as you just pointed out, Jonathan, the hardest part, one of the biggest obstacles, there's many, is time, right? So when I wrote the book, right, it was all about 4 tools that take less than 2 minutes, because when teachers say they don't have time to build relationships. So when I look at a tool, before I actually give you the tool, let me just also frame it. When you also ask teachers about building relationships with kids, they typically hyper-focus on their relationship with the kid. Well, something that really stood out post-pandemic was, what about the student-to-student connection? What about the student to you and to them? So one of the outcomes that I always teach is that no matter how you're building relationships or how to create connections, if you don't know the outcome that you're working towards, you're kind of winging it. And what I say is, you can't wing relationships. It doesn't naturally just happen. And so when I say cross-connecting, what I've developed through cross-connecting is there's 3 outcomes that every time we create a connection or build a relationship. It's student to student, student to teacher, teacher to student. And then you talk about teacher to teacher, and then we got to move it up, staff to staff, staff to leadership, leadership to staff. So that cross-connections, if you know the direction you're going for, then you know the target you're hitting. Now, with that said, the tools that I'm giving you, I've given you 4 tools that take less than 2 minutes. The one tool that I'm going to give your listeners today is a 60-second relate break. Now, I'm not going to, Jonathan, I love what you're saying, but I will tell you, Alex, when you said, oh, Pokemon, and see, that's what I'm built on. I'm built on saying it's not just about Pokemon, but how do we reveal that we're more alike than we are different? Because the return on your investment through connections and relationships building is the more we know about each other, the better we treat each other. And I don't think anyone argues with that in premises, correct? So the more we know about, the students know about each other, the better they treat each other. The more they know about the teacher, the better they treat the teacher. The more the teacher knows about the students, the better they treat them. The hard part is, when I walk in the campuses and teachers, and we've trained over 40,000 teachers since 2015, is nobody is creating a systematic approach to make that happen. So the teacher connection toolkit through the connection driven classroom is literally just driven through get to know you questions. But those questions have to be in a structure that quickly, efficiently allow that cross connecting to happen in the classroom in less than 2 minutes. And I'm going to give you the easiest tool that happens in 1 minute. So in a 60-second relate break, teacher puts a GTKY question. Where do you like your favorite French fries? Like, what's a show that you're watching that you're excited about? It doesn't matter what the question is, but it's a low level, easy, get to know you question. And then you tell the students, hey, for the next 60 seconds, you guys are going to turn and talk. And I don't just like shoulder partners, because let's say that you stuck me with Ryan and Ryan doesn't like to talk. So this group, a group of 3 or 4 would work well. You don't have to get out of your seats, but you're going to turn and talk to your neighbors. So for the next 60 seconds, all the students have to do is talk about that prompt, talk about that question, because while they're learning about each other, the teacher's role for the next 60 seconds is to just walk around and eavesdrop. It's an ear hustling activity. Walk around and listen to all your kids. Don't try to hummingbird. Don't try to pick up on anyone. Walk around naturally. And if you hear a good conversation, stick around for it. If you do, but the whole goal is don't pass out papers, don't multitask, literally invest, my word, invest 1 minute in getting to know your students. Put a timer. I literally put the question up on the smart board or the TV, put the timer, have the kids talk. And while they're simultaneously learning about each other, you're going to learn about them. Then at the end of that 60 seconds, the timer goes off. Then you got to share with them, what is your favorite book? What do you like to get your French fries for? And what I mean by this, Jonathan, is I agree. One Pokemon question isn't going to do it. But if you learn about Pokemon and where you like your French fries and what books you read, what we're doing is we're creating thread-like moments from a thread to a rope to a yarn. And before you know it, but these 2-minute connections create a fabric that holds your class together so that when you go to fall apart, you don't fall completely apart, right? And it's giving teachers an intentional 1-minute strategy that allow them to quickly and efficiently get to know their students get to know them, and they get to know each other. And what we love about that is when this happens with fidelity and consistency, teachers deal with less discipline issue. So if you want to average about 50% decrease in those tier 1 behaviors, it's about proactively preventing the disruptions before they happen. And I think where most people are at is we want to put fires out. I like being in the prevention business. Proactive tools to actually help deal with discipline and behavior quickly and efficiently allows teachers to gain access and for them to gain access for them.
Perfect. Seating chart, turn and talk, find something to connect with. Teresa.
I agree with pretty much what everybody's been saying so far. I'm a big fan personally, especially with new teachers and the frustration that they tend, regardless of what their background is, they tend to experience. Set clear and reasonable expectations and then implement them consistently. Don't expect your kids to do something that you don't hold yourself to the same standard of. Because we all know the kids are going to be the first ones that see it, and they're going to be the first ones that call you on it. And then you run into those problems of not having those connections with the students. And it's going to be a really tough hole to dig yourself out of once you've burned that bridge with the students. So I think new teachers coming in from the very beginning, set realistic expectations for your students and for yourself. Don't come in and expect yourself to, I think all of us came in that day one and we were going to be God's gift to education, and then found out very quickly that's not exactly what we were. So I think, giving yourself some grace as a teacher with the reasonable expectations of how you need to grow into being able to make connections and build an engaging classroom is super important.
Do as I do, not do as I say. Love it. Sam, what you got? What you got besides massaging the brain?
Well, I've never managed the classroom like that. I was actually going to say everything Kevin said. I had it written down right here, but he already said it all. But I think relationships and consistency, like I said, I love relationships. Like that's my biggest thing. When I feel like I can connect with a kid, I think I can get the most out of them. When I connect with a parent or whatever, even when I connect with a principal, even someone, but I just, I love relationships, and I couldn't emphasize more when I talked to what I was doing at the alternative school. They almost wanted to my lieutenant wanted to move me to a high school, but the alternative school is small. And my principal sat in there and said, if you want other SROs to do what he does, bring them in here. I'll bring more chairs, and then they can leave because he's not going anywhere. But it was just all about relationships. That's about all I can say. And what Kevin said.
Close us out, Ryan, with that question.
Yeah, first off, I just want to say, look, for all of those alt cert teachers, I tip my hat to you, because I can remember very early in my day saying, how dare these people coming into education? They didn't do it right. And what I have quickly realized, guys, that some of our alt cert are incredible teachers, because they are coming to a system right now and I'm not in education anymore, so I can say this, that are getting disrespected and vitriol thrown at them like I've never seen. And so I tip my hat, and I'm mad props to our alt cert people that are coming in at a time where educators are not being valued the way they should. But for me, behavior, that type of stuff, it just comes down to valued, seen, and heard. What are you doing intentionally? And that's the thing, intentionally, every single day, to make sure every single kid that you interact with feels valued. And that could look different. For me, as a high school administrator, I carried licorice, and I gave licorice to kids in the hall. That was our connect, where they knew, hey, I was, also learning their names. Something super simple. Know your kids' names. Know something about them that the next time you see, you can bring it back up. And one of the things that I always encourage teachers to do was to sit down with a blank sheet of paper, list every single kid's name that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. And the kids that you leave off are the kids that you need to spend more time with tomorrow, because those are the kids that are not on your mind. And I'll say this, if you can't connect with a kid, I don't know how to teach you how to connect with the kid. I think you should, if you are in education, I hope that you can connect with kids. And the last thing I'm going to say is don't forget that high school kids are kids too. Like we think that magically these kids get to high school and now we treat them like men. That is the biggest piece of bullshit, BS that I've heard in a long time. I used to tell our high school kids, look, as adults, we suck at telling you what do you have to be stressed out about because you're a high school kid. Well, I can tell you when you say that to a high school kid, you open a door because now magically this kid, they know that you get it, right? So be genuine, be real, be authentic. Don't fake it. If you're not a relationship person, the kid's going to know that, but you can figure out other ways. And so a kid can smell a fake from a mile away. So be you, connect with them, name the kids that you see on a day-to-day basis, and the kids that you've left off tomorrow, find them in the hallway.
Perfect. Awesome. Now we're going to close off with the last 3 questions that are real quick because by now you already know. Just don't go into, you don't have to go that much because it's an easy question. Let's go with the first question right now. Cell phones. Teresa, thoughts?
That's honestly a tough one. I'd say not during instruction.
Okay. Ryan.
No, they are rotting our brains. Get them away from kids, please.
Sam.
No, yeah, get rid of them. They're too much chance for kids to start conflict with each other and then meet each other at lunch.
Kevin.
As valuable as they are, I think the negatives outweigh the positives. So unless you can create small positive opportunities throughout the entire school day, I would try to say minimize them or eliminate them.
Jonathan.
Yeah, I agree with Kevin. The negatives far outweigh the positives. My organization, we stopped allowing them even to be visible at all during the day from bell to bell, from opening bell to closing. And it's been a lot better ever since we did that.
Exactly. I told you by this point in education, we all got our ideas of that. Hey, it's time for commercial break. Hey, Kevin, I've been showing your book. How about you show your book and talk about it real quick? Couple of seconds, real quick. Well, Jonathan,
Absolutely.
take out your book.
Check out the Art of ISS, Jonathan. So the connection-driven classroom, literally 4 tools that take less than 2 minutes to help you create connections in the classroom that allow student to student, student to teacher, teacher to teacher connections in the classroom. If you're looking at it, ultimately, there's a lot more depth to understanding just beyond those connections. So it goes deep into alternatives, strategies, adaptations. I would, if you haven't checked it out, it's a great philosophy to learn about classroom management through a proactive approach.
I agree. I've been promoting for the last 4 or 5 weeks right here. I've been showing. I got my copy. Ryan, tell them about your old podcast and new podcast real quick.
Yeah, so I started back in 2020 for my 40th birthday called the Big Ed Idea Podcast. And at that time, it was all about finding the disruptors in education. What are those big ideas to be able to disrupt the system? Well, I love how God works because when I moved into my new role as Big Brother, Executive Director of Big Brothers Big Sisters, I was able to keep the same name, the Big Ed Idea. But now Big, obviously Big Brothers Big Sisters, Ed, Executive Director. And so now I interview people that are experts on things that keep kids from reaching their potential. Because at Big Brothers Big Sisters, we think every single kid has amazing potential, but there are some things that keep kids from getting there. So we have experts on trauma, experts on poverty. We've had experts on just different things. And so, yeah, if you are into the mentoring space, or if you just want to come on and talk about mentoring and a mentor that you have had in your life, because here's what I know. 100% of the Fortune 500 companies, the top 5 Fortune 500 companies in the world have mentoring programs. So if our employers are spending millions of dollars, why can't our education system start doing the same? And so, yeah, come to the Big Ed Idea Podcast. It's on all of the different podcasts.
Love it. Jonathan.
Oh, thank you. I thought I missed my shot. I had to run to the garage because I only have some books in my car. And I was like, oh, I didn't know you were going to do that. Hold on. Hi. Yeah. So this is The Art of In-School Suspension, a discipline program that benefits staff and students. You can get it on Amazon. More importantly, if you go to theartofiss.com, it'll take you to our professional development online course. So you can sign up to get some PD for your campus. If you're in Texas, it is TEA approved and you will get professional development hours for it. Please use it to fix your in-school suspension program. Less than 1% of in-school suspensions are effective. I can teach you how to make it better. We can help your staff. It's worth it. It's worth the 3 PD hours. And if you go and get our online course, we'll also send you one of these.
All right, awesome, man. To close it out, Superintendent Glenn Robbins from New Jersey. Great book, Stoics. You're going to need this when you meet that cheerleading mom that wants her daughter in the front line, not in the back line, but in the front line, or that softball mom that refuses to sell cookie dough, but still wants to go on the trip. If you know what I'm talking about. You need the Stoics to keep you focused. And a book that I helped co-author, chapter 23, Barbara Bray's Grow Your Why. Check it out. There we go. Enough with the plugs today. All right, guys. So based on where you're, go ahead, Sam. I can't see that, bro. What is that? What is it?
You're on mute, Sam.
Can't hear you, bro.
Oh, here I was talking away. Sorry. So my wife wrote a book. I can't know if we can get it up there. Beyond the Difference, The Art of Co-Parenting, basically. So she wrote a book. So if you have two parents that are divorced and they're coming up there trying to deal with their children, Christina Perrone, you can get it on Amazon. I had to get my commercial in there too.
Oh, I didn't know your wife had a book. There we go. Hey, that's what it's all about. No one's getting cash here. No one's no one's getting billions. But you know what? We're helping each other, because if we help each other, our kids will become better students, better scholars. That means that we have improved our country, our community, our city. So it's all about getting better, stronger together. Hey, based on your current chair, we're about to close it off right here with a Échale Ganas questions. Based on your, talk to that individual right now, talk to those educators and let them know some advice based on the chair that you're sitting from right now, where you're looking at. Give them some advice that, God, if I wish I had a platform. You have the platform right now. I'm not talking that we have Joe Rogan numbers, but I'm saying there's people from across the country on this platform right now. So talk to people out there, talk to educators, let them know what advice you got for them. Go ahead there, Jonathan.
Sure. Can I talk to admin?
Sure.
All right, guys, fix your in-school suspension. Fix it. Like, it will benefit you so much, not just your teachers, not just your students, but you personally. Like, fix it, because what's happening right now is we have a real issue with teachers wanting to leave education and leaving in droves. Also, we were talking about having the alt certs come in. Like, we're welcoming them because there's less of them even coming in now. There's less people like me. When I started, they were like, hey, you should get your SPED certification because that'll make you more hireable. Now they're like, get any certification. We'll take anyone at this point. And what happens a lot of times, and you already know this, but I'm going to say it, is you have a dysfunctional in-school suspension program that's either rewarding negative behaviors or it's just a dungeon, and it's still 100% loss of instruction for every day of placement. We can help you do the opposite of that, because when you send a kid back 3 days behind in instruction from ISS or OSS or whatever, you're punishing the teacher as well. It's like they now have to make that up. Make up that instructional time or accept the poor data. So support your teachers. Please make ISS better. It'll help you too, because I'm literally your sword arm. If I'm your ISS teacher, like, it's the only effective intervention that you have. And right now, most of them are not effective. So you could either have an effective intervention or not. Please fix your in-school suspension. I beg of you.
Teresa.
I think the biggest thing, and this would go to pretty much everybody in education, is understand student behavior is not a personal thing. It's not, it may manifest in that way, but there is a much bigger story behind the student's behavior. And we've got to stop taking it personal, especially in the administrative realm, because we're over dealing punitive measures to students because we are taking it personal.
Agreed. Sam.
I'll talk to SROs, I guess, in schools, but let your guard down a little bit, not in an officer safety situation, but build those relationships with the students, the colleagues, the mentors, but also figure out what you can do for your student and not to the student. And when you change that mindset, the relationship thing will come easier.
Love it. Ryan.
Sam, you are killing it, dude. More SROs need to be listening to you. I have been fortunate every school that I've been at. My SROs are incredible. And I will say this. I'm sorry, Josh, I'm diverting from that question, but SROs are such an incredible opportunity within the schools for kids to build relationships with men and women that they may not see as somebody that they can trust outside of the school building. Many of the schools that I was at, kids would talk to the SROs before they would talk to the teachers. So keep up the good work, dude. You are kicking it. So, all right, what would I say to, I'm going to talk to my administrators as well. I want you to find your local Big Brothers, Big Sisters organization selfishly. I think anybody would testify we are living in the most connected, but also the most disconnected part of any time of history. Our kids are less connected to other kids and adults than ever before. Statistically, 1 in 3 kids report not having a mentor. That is a big issue. So that equates to 40 million kids in the United States that do not have a mentor. I say that because every teacher, every successful teacher that you talk to, if you ask them what they're doing, it's building relationships. But we also know it's getting harder and harder for teachers to have the time to build relationships with kids in their classrooms. And a connected kid does better. So for administrators out there, I would implore you to find the local Big Brothers, Big Sisters and figure out how you could get bigs to come into your school and connect with kids for 1 hour a week, just showing that kid that they are valued, seen, and heard. And a kid that cares about themselves is a kid that cares about school, and it's a kid that cares about others, and it's a kid that's going to start working. We've got to remember there's will and there's skill, and you can't do the skill without the will. So I would implore you to find Big Brothers, Big Sisters, or if there's another mentoring agency, find that as well, and figure out how you can connect with them, because that's a partnership made in heaven.
Thank you for sharing that. That's why you're here, brother. That's exactly why I called you, because you're bringing that angle right there. Perfect. That us as administrators, you remember that, right? You weren't thinking of big brothers, big sisters when you were in the chair. Kevin wasn't thinking about that.
I tried. No, I was. I tried to find them.
Perfect.
I tried to find them.
Love it. Love it. Kevin, close it out. Kevin, close it out.
Absolutely. Obviously, I'm all about campus connections. I'm obviously about campus connections, creating some type of connection coach, because I think we have instructional coaches, but we don't really have connection coaches. But I'm not going to really plug that. I want to speak directly to administrators and staff members. There's 2 things that I'm going to give you advice in. The first one is clarity. Whatever you're leading has to be so clear it cannot be misunderstood. And a quick example I give you, I was at a middle school here in Texas, and they had this gingerbread cutout, and it said, "This is what a successful student looks like at this middle school." So when I said, "What does an unsuccessful student look like? You should see the deer in the headlights," they were like, "What?" Because we're so busy at telling them what they should look like, and I agree that. But what happens when everybody doesn't meet that expectation? We lack clarity. To me, clarity is something that's really missing in education, particularly in our expectations, in our communications. The last one I'll just say is this. We're so busy teaching them what not to do, we don't teach them what to do. And I'm going to say this again. We're so busy at telling them what not to do, we don't tell them what to do. And I can tell you, when I consult and I travel and I support campuses, 2 things that stand out. One, I have a girl that's out of dress code. And what's interesting out of this dress code situation is nobody has ever tapped into her strength to say, how do we stay within dress code and still look cute? how do we stay within dress code and still look individualized, right? And all they did was punish her and punish her. But the minute we stopped and we said, well, what should we be wearing? All of a sudden, she created a one-page flyer. All of a sudden, we've got campuses that we have 4-minute passing periods, and they got to go from this place, Josh, to this place. And so when I asked them, what is the role and responsibility of a student during transitions? They're like, I don't know. No one's ever talked to us about that. We're not teaching them how to transition. We're expecting them how to transition. So if we teach them how to go from one class to the next class, and we tell them, you're either going to your next classroom, we're using the restroom, you're taking care of your personal stuff, or you're socializing in this area. But for me, where I see we could minimize so many little problems in education is increase your clarity and stop not just telling them what to do, but start telling them what to do.
Wow. Exactly. I agree. Awesome. Here we go. Lightning round questions. Lightning round. The Échale Ganas question. Ganas. What is Ganas? Sam Perón again. He don't know what Ganas is. Oh, yeah, he probably saw the movie. He probably did. He's still confused with Chinchilagua. Ganas right there. It is a spiritual word for all Hispanics. Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras, Mexico, Panama, Puerto Rico, Cuba. We all use the same. There's no equate in English. There is no equal word. That's told from great grandmother to mother to daughter. Everybody says that because we not only encourage the best effort, but it's something that has to do with our bloodline. It has to do with something that connects us through generations. So I want you to answer these questions con ganas and inspire those people that will be hitting. I don't know. Tomorrow people might be going to work, might not be going to work. I don't know. But if it's Monday or Tuesday, let's make sure that we inspire them. Teresa, you're going to head us off. Lightning round. We're not going to take 30,000 sentences. Lightning round. Teresa, give advice to a new teacher.
Be the example you expect from your students.
Read a note, an email, a text from a teacher or student that inspired you.
So from a teacher, I appreciate everything that you're doing to protect us all. The list of people, all of us are in a bad place right now, and you're doing a great job holding the ship together.
Love it. Send some flowers to a current educator that inspires you.
One of my mentors, Dr. Garrett Ritchie, is my former principal.
Name one person that people should follow on social media.
Venetia Grant.
All right. On what platform? X?
Various, yeah. She's on X. She's on YouTube. She's on TikTok.
Love it. What is one song, una canción that embodies your spirit as a person?
Brave by Sarah Bareilles.
What is your favorite quote?
Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right.
What is your favorite cheat food or sweet?
Carry gummies.
All right. What's your favorite TV show or book?
Yellowstone. It's actually on right now.
All right. How can people reach out to a high school alternative school campus principal to learn from her? How can they reach?
They can either reach out to me on X at optionshs_SISD. They can get me on my email at thentg@sisd.net as well.
Love it. Ryan, give advice to a new teacher.
Find your why.
Read a note, an email, a text from a teacher or student that inspired you.
You were my favorite part of this year.
Woo! Send some flowers to a current educator that inspires you.
Travis Brantley. He's a teacher that works 4 jobs.
Wow. Okay. Name one person people should follow on social media.
Martin Silverman.
Yes, sir. What is one song that embodies your spirit as a person?
Ooh, Changemaker.
What is your favorite quote?
Evolve or die.
What is your favorite cheat food, sir? Or sweet?
Moon pies.
Wow, I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah.
What is your favorite TV show or book?
Favorite TV show, The Office.
All right. How can people reach out to you, young man?
Yes, sir. Find me on social media, Ryan Scott. Follow my podcast, The Big Ed Idea. And look for me anywhere on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Insta.
Kevin Curtis, give advice to a new teacher.
Lead with
Read a
connections.
note, an email, a text from a teacher or student that inspired you.
Sure, student. I don't think I never got to say this, never known how but to thank you for being there when I needed you and being like a dad I never had.
Love it. Send some flowers to a current educator who inspires you.
Todd
There you
Bloomer.
go. Gonna come up on the show in a couple of weeks. Also, name one person people should follow on social media.
I would say Megan Didi and Kara Rigsby at Integrated.
What's one song that embodies your spirit as a person?
Sure, I would say Eminem. Lose
What is your
Yourself.
favorite quote?
James Comer's quote: "No significant learning occurs without a significant."
What is your favorite cheat
relationship."
food, sir, or sweet?
Anything.
What is your favorite
chocolate.
TV show or book? How can
Ozark.
people reach out and get all that you provide?
Sure. Website is D Discipline. So just throw an extra D in front of there for differentiated discipline. So ddiscipline.com. And then on all social media platforms, I am
Love
differentiated.
it. Sam Perone, give advice to a new teacher.
Close your mouth sometimes and listen.
All right. Read a note, an email, or a text from a teacher or student that inspires you.
I have it here. Officer Prone, thank you for making our school safe and for keeping me up to date on stuff that I didn't know would happen if I was doing things dumb and hanging out with the wrong people.
Oh, there you go.
I
Send
thought
some
that was
flowers to a
interesting.
current educator that inspires you.
Roman Joe Torres, he's a dyslexia specialist for GISD.
Name one person people should follow on social media.
Kirk Martin, he created Calm Parenting, and he'll teach you how to deal with defiant, yelling children and struggles in a calm manner. We've seen him in church several times. Very good.
What's one song that embodies your spirit as a person?
Besides naming a bunch of Metallica songs, I'll go with Rise by Callum Scott.
What's your favorite quote?
When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor.
What's your favorite cheat food or sweet?
Twizzlers and Tootsie Rolls, and I'm waiting for them to combine them.
What's your favorite TV show or book?
Office is one of them, and I went back to The Shield back in 2002.
How can people get a hold of you, sir, that's been in the street and an alternative school and a current campus?
You can email me, right? SHPERRON, leave off the E because that was too expensive for GISD, at garlandisd.net.
Awesome. Jonathan, here we go, my man. Give advice to a new teacher.
Relax. You're going to screw this up sometimes. It's okay.
Read a note, an email, a text from a teacher or student that inspired you.
Yeah. I'm going to read one from an AP, one of my APs. You've made my job easier. Conversations with parents are easier. I can tell them we have a guy that will make sure their student doesn't get behind academically while in ISS. They have less to argue over when I present them with this data.
Love it. Send some flowers to a current educator that inspires you.
My wife and daughter, of course, both of them.
Name one person people should follow on social media.
I'm going to name two, Joshua Stamper from Aspire to Lead and Charlie Peck.
They'll be in the show in a couple of weeks. What is one song that embodies your spirit as a person?
Stand Tall, Think Clear by Adam Seven.
What's your favorite quote?
Kevin's going to love this one. It is clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Brene Brown.
Love it. What's your favorite cheat food or sweet?
Ice cream, but I'm not really supposed to have it.
What's your favorite TV show or book?
Book, Chasing the Scream by Johan Hari. I'm a big narrative nonfiction fan.
And how can people get a hold of you, your services, and your knowledge, sir?
That would be www.theartofiss.com. That's going to be the best way to get a hold of me. I am limited on social media these days.
Awesome. I would like to thank everyone for being here. Just like that, an hour and 40 minutes, but you know what? Did not seem that way. Thank you for dropping that knowledge. I appreciate your time, and I know that all the people across America appreciate the knowledge that you brought to the table. And don't forget, this show is about iron sharpens iron. Have a great week out there. We need you, the best version of you, because your kids need you, and we discussed that today. You might have a great lesson, you might have a great idea, but if you don't connect with them, it's not going to be 100%. So use all this knowledge that you got today and make it happen. Don't forget, next week we have our instructional coach show, central office, helping the campus. How does that work? Does that happen in your district? And after that, the happy show, big hitters just like tonight from all over the United States and North Carolina Conference. A lot of those presenters will be here in 3 weeks. Top-notch guests tonight. The last 41 shows, free PD for you, no excuses. Panel, stay on the call. Say goodbye to everybody.
See you
Bye,
guys.
everybody.
Bye.